welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and today I am back with a sort of reading check-in, I suppose. It is the 26th of November as I'm filming this, and I've honestly not read very much this month, and so I just wanted to talk you through what I have been reading or attempting to read, what I'm reading now, and sort of my plans for the rest of the year, which is basically just 1 month. So I put out a reading vlog a couple of weeks ago maybe, where I was reading quite a few books actually, just sort of like reading what I felt like, and that all went really well. I read a few really good books. I read The Lady's Paradise by Emile Zola, which I really enjoyed. I didn't finish it in that vlog, but I finished it shortly after, and I really loved that book. Like, it's probably I don't want to say a new favourite classic, but I really enjoyed it. It was a French classic set in a department store in Paris, and just all of the sort of drama that goes on, and I really loved it. I also read a couple of good short books. I read The English Don't Understand Wool by Helen DeWitt and really enjoyed it. And I read The Grief of Stones by Katherine Addison, which is the second book in the Goblin Emperor world, and it was really good as well. So it started off a really good month, and then I had a couple of holds come in from the library on Libby as ebooks, so I started reading The Morning Star by Karl of Knausgaard. This is a book that I started like a year and a half ago and read about 150 pages. It's quite a long book. I think it's about 600 pages, and I wasn't really feeling it. I read it for the whole of his My Struggle series before, and I really loved it. Apart from the last book, a little bit less so, but on the whole, I really enjoyed it. I really got on well with his writing, and that series is auto-fiction. It's really all about his life, different aspects of his life. And so when I first started reading The Morning Star, I was struggling because it's not auto-fiction. It's the start of a new, I think it's going to be a 5-book series, but it's lots of different characters, and basically the way the book is structured is you get, I think it's 9 different characters, and it's sort of the day leading up to the appearance of the star in the sky. So I guess because of that, you basically get the start of lots of people's stories, and you feel like you're never really progressing. And I went away on holiday for a week, and I took one physical book with me, but I didn't take any other physical books, so I just had this book on Libby and A Natural History of Dragons, which I'll get to in a minute. But I was planning for this to be my main read for the week when I was away, and I just got like, honestly, about 200 pages through it this time, and I was like, no, I'm really not enjoying it. So I think this is just not a book for me, which I'm really sad about, because Knausgaard is one of those authors that I thought I wanted to read everything he'd written, but I honestly don't think I do. I don't think I got on with his characterization, which is interesting. I think it's almost like when you have, like, for example, I've read a lot of Murakami's books, and so every time I pick up a new book by Murakami, I can sort of see the machinations behind it, because I know what his interests are. Like, he likes cats, he likes jazz, he likes fantastical worlds. Like, it's always kind of the same. And I think because I've read so much of Knausgaard's auto-fiction, I know a lot of what his interests are as a person. Like, he's really into music, he's really into football, he is interested in sort of religious history, and a lot of those things sort of shone through in different characters, and it was almost like I could see too much into what was going on, like, in his mind when he was writing it, and it was really just, I couldn't buy into any of the characters. I don't know if that always needs to be the case for writers that you've read a lot of, but I just felt like this, I just was not enjoying. I didn't find any of the characters believable. Like, he was writing some from sort of young girls' perspective, and I was just like, this is, yeah, I'm just not buying it. And not particularly enjoying it. And I think because none of the stories were progressing, because I still hadn't even read from all of the characters' perspectives that we were going to meet, I was just kind of lost interest. And that kind of put me into a reading slump, because, as I say, the only other book I had was A Natural History of Dragons, I think that's what it's called, by Marie Brennan. And I think just after the Knausgaard, I was not really in a reading mood, and this just wasn't gripping me. I said before that I don't really like dragons, so I don't really know why I thought this book would work for me, but it's memoirs of this woman who we know that she has become a famous dragon historian, and she's worked with dragons in this world. It's very light fantasy, and she's reflecting back on the early years of her life. And this is the first book in a series. I don't know how, I think there may be just 2 books out. I'm not sure if more are going to be published. But I was quite liking it to start with. It was talking about different types of dragons, and it was talking about her childhood. And then we got to the point where she was going on her first expedition with dragons, and it was just, I just didn't care. I didn't care, and I just felt like I was getting an awful lot of detail. And this was not really the book's fault, this was just my fault. Sometimes when I when I get into that reading slump, like anything I try and pick up won't work for me. So I sort of lost interest in that, and then it got to the point where I had a few days left on the loan, and I was like, I'm not going to get through this. So I just returned it early. So that was not so successful. And then the only other book I took with me on my week away, we were just going to England for a family wedding, and I was seeing some friends and stuff. So it's not like we were going far, but I just decided only to take one book with me. And that was The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford. I bought this on World of Books, and when it arrived, I didn't really look at the condition of it. I was just like, great. I wanted to read this book for a while. I started watching, there was a BBC TV programme of it, and I actually took it out of the library before a couple of years ago, and then read a couple of pages and had to put it back. But I knew that I liked the writing style from what I had read. And yeah, it's sort of about a young girl and her cousin and them coming of age in this sort of big country house and this sort of crazy family. I just knew that Nancy Mitford's meant to be quite a funny writer, and it's what I was in the mood for. But this book, when I started reading it, it was the smelliest book I've ever seen. It was, the person that owned it before obviously was a very heavy smoker and lived in an incredibly damp house, because it was honestly disgusting, to the point that I was on a train to London, and I was like really worried that everyone was going to think that it was me that smelled like that, because I was like trying to read the book without turning the pages like too fast so that no one else could smell it. And I was really enjoying the book, but yeah, I couldn't continue reading it because it was just a very, very disgusting experience. So yeah, I will read that book soon. I have a hold on it on Libby, but yeah, I just couldn't continue with that experience. So that also kind of put me into a reading slump, because I was enjoying it, but then I wasn't wanting to read it because it was so smelly, blah, blah, blah. And then since then, I sort of had a week and a half of really not reading much at all. I don't know if anyone else gets like this when you're in a reading slump, but like I could honestly pick up the best book in the world, and if I'm not, like, if my mind is not functioning, I can't concentrate on it. I have no idea what's going on, and I just put it back down after 2 pages. So I've gone through, like, I want to say 10 books of just like reading a couple of pages and putting them back down and be like, no, I'm not in the mood for this. Yeah, I would never DNF a book when I'm feeling that way, because like I know that I will come back to it and enjoy it at a later date, but it's quite frustrating. But I also think that I did need a break from reading, because I've been reading a lot, especially the latter half of this year. October especially was like, I read like 14 or 15 books, and that's way too many books for me, and it kind of has made me think that I really do need to try and slow my reading down just to get the most enjoyment out of the books that I can, and for it not to take over my life. Like I don't think I'm too bad. Like I really do try and balance my life as much as possible, but I never want to feel like I have to be reading. I want to be reading because I'm enjoying it. And yeah, I was getting to the point where I just wasn't feeling that anymore. So yeah, I've had a good week and a half break. I've been watching Big Brother. I really don't watch any TV, like hardly any TV, and especially not really reality TV, but we watched the first series of the reboot of the UK Big Brother last year, and it was really, really good. And so the second series I think is now fully finished, but I'm only like 15 episodes in, so nobody tell me who won. But I'm really enjoying this series so far as well, so it's been a nice break. But at the weekend I picked up a book, and I was finally like, okay, I'm enjoying this. I'm back in my reading mood. So that's great news. And that book is The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel. So this is the third book in the Wolf Hall trilogy that follows Thomas Cromwell. And I read the first book, I want to say about 4 years ago. And then I read the second book about 6 months after that. I got this book for my birthday in 2021, so over 3 years ago. And it's just so long. Like, the first book is about 600 pages and the second book is maybe 500. This one is 900, and I wanted to finish the story, but I was a bit worried that too much time had passed and I was going to have forgotten who everyone was and like forgotten the sort of like narrative drive of it. And I was so close to unhauling this book when I was recently going through some of my books, because I thought, am I ever actually going to read this? It's 900 pages long. It's been 3 years since I read the last book in the series, and like, do I care that much? It seems like I do, and I am really loving this. I've read this much, which is 140 pages, so it's still very early days, but I'm just trying to take it really slowly, because the writing in this book is really descriptive, and I'm just enjoying the process so far. I think that this is a book that you need to read quite slowly because Hilary Mantel does not make it obvious what's, like, you need to work for it. She's not like laying out exactly what's going on. Most of it is conversations between Thomas Cromwell, who is our main character, who is sort of advisor to Henry VIII. The point that we're at in this book, it's not really a spoiler because it is history, but at the end of the second book, it's the end of Anne Boleyn, and we're now on to Henry VIII's third wife. Thomas Cromwell is trying to sort of tie up some loose ends regarding the succession and who is going to be Henry VIII's heir, because at this point he still doesn't have a male heir, and he is trying to discredit Anne Boleyn's daughter and his previous wife's daughter, and he also has a bastard son who also wants to be the heir. So there's like a bit of that going on. I think what Hilary Mantel does really well though is writing conversations that are funny and just like feel like real people. Like, sometimes when you read books that are set, like this book is set in 1536, and like these conversations are still feel funny. They still feel like real people, that like she has really brought history to life. I feel sometimes when you read books that people feel distant, you feel like if it's set in the past that you can't really relate to them. But I mean, obviously I can't really relate to Thomas Cromwell, but the way that his character is written, like, it makes him such a real person. So yeah, I am going to finish this series, which makes me very happy. I've had a book on my TBR for a really long time, and especially when it's a book in a series that I've been meaning to finish, like the satisfaction you get when you can put that book on my read bookshelf and like mentally finish the series, it's great. So I'm really happy I have finally come back to it. That will definitely take me to the end of this month and probably like a good way into December. So I think my reading plans for December are just to really take it easy. I will have quite a bit of time off for Christmas, which is great. I would like to use that time to read, but I went through and unhauled some of my books, mainly my read books because that bookshelf is out of control, but I also got rid of a few books off of this bookshelf, which I've not read, that I've not actually like physically got rid of them yet. They're just in the other room, so I'm going to have a think about it. But yeah, there were some books on this bookshelf that every time I was like, oh, what do I want to read? Like, I just thought I'm never going to read them. But I would like to try and focus on some of my physical books because yeah, when I was unhauling some things, I counted up all of my books and there are over 70 books on my shelf, which you may think is not that many. I have read over 100 books this year, so it's not like a crazy number of books considering how much I read, but I don't want to have books languishing on my shelves for years. Like, I would like to have a good turnover of books where I read them, I buy some more. And at the start of this year, I had 60 books. So I have actually grown my TBR by 10. And my plan for this year was to read all of my unread books that I had from before the start of the year. And I still have 25 unread books that I've owned since before the start of this year. So I'm definitely not going to be able to read the 25 that I have left to read, but I would like to read at least 3 books from this shelf, and it doesn't need to be ones from before the start of the year, just any of the books that I own. I would really like to focus on. There is one, although there are two library books that I'm waiting for that I may get to. So the first is The Pursuit of Love, because I'm counting that as a book that I own because I owned it and I had to put it in the bin because it was honestly just so disgusting, like it was a health hazard. I am first in line on my Libby loan for that, so when it comes in I would like to finish it because I was enjoying it. And the other physical book that I have reserved at my library is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I've heard really good things about this book. It's a sort of new fantasy release. I just heard Jess from Sunbeam's Jess talk about this, and she has really interesting taste in fantasy and she absolutely loved this one, and I've heard lots of people rave about it, and I saw that my library had a copy, so I have reserved that one. So yeah, those are the only two exceptions, and I don't even think The Spear Cuts Through Water will have come in on time for me to read it before the end of the year. But yeah, that is my very unexciting December reading plans. I'm just, you know, when you've been in a bit of a reading slump, I don't want to commit to too much when I for one have no idea how fast I'm going to read The Mirror and the Light. And also, like, I just want to ease myself back into my reading gently. I don't want to feel like I have to be reading for hours and hours every day. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this sort of rambly video. Do let me know if you've read any good books recently that you think I would enjoy, or if you have any good reading plans for December. I'm really not like a holiday type book person. I have no Christmas books on my TBR, so I certainly won't be reading any like holiday romances. It's just not my sort of thing. I don't even really particularly like Christmas films that much, so my reading in December will definitely not be Christmas themed at all. But yeah, I'm hoping I will get through some good books.